What is up, guys? In this video I'm going to be showing you how we can create a for loop in JavaScript and what it does. But let's get started immediately by writing a bit of code. So the first thing we're going to type in is for, and we have to first define what the starting value of the for loop is. So we're going to type in a keyword which is called let, and I'll go over what that means later. But for now, you just need to know that it's very similar to the var keyword, but it has to do with scopes, and I will explain that later as well. So for now, just go ahead and type in let I, which of course you can put any variable name you want. This can even be cat or whatever, but a conventional name for this is I, and this is going to be used as an iterator. And usually this would start at 0. Then we have to provide a semicolon because we have to add a few more statements here. And we're going to add a condition. So while I is less than or equal to 10, and each time this code gets executed, we want to increase I by 1. So eventually we will reach the 10, and that will mean the statement is not true anymore, and we'll be able to exit out of this for loop. So far we created the condition for it to actually execute. And now if we go ahead and just log I, you'll notice that we will get 10 values or 11 values since we're starting at 0 printed to the console. Let's just go ahead and click on save. So starting from 0 to 10, we have all of the values printed. And this can be used to save you a lot of time when you have to make many calculations very fast and print many statements, or even just provide some dummy data. Who knows? But let's go ahead and create a real example. So what we're going to do in here is create a program that tells you whether a number is odd or even. So we're just going to go ahead and type in value is equal to I modulus operator 2, which means if this gives us the result of 0, I mean the remainder of 0, it means the number is even. Otherwise, it's going to mean the number is odd, because if you divide 2 by 9, you'll have a remainder of 1, and that will mean it's a odd number. Otherwise, 2 divided by 10 is an even number, of course, because you have no remainder. But we have to add the question mark because we will be using the Elvis operator. And it's going to be plus is even. So it's going to take the number and it's going to add this text to it so we can tell it's an even number. Else we are going to write I plus is odd. Then we just have to go ahead and log the value. And one last thing I want to do to this program is add a log that says the loop has ended. Now when we go ahead and click on save, you'll notice that starting at 0, it will say 0 is even, because 0 divided by 2 will give you 0, which is still an even number for some odd reason. Then you'll get 1 is odd, 2 is even, 3 is odd, 4 is even, and it continues down all the way until 10 when it exits out of the loop, and it will tell you the loop has ended. And there's actually one thing you should know before you use the for loop, and that is if you enter some expensive process, I don't know, something that's very hard to compute, or even you add a lot of numbers, this is going to slow down the performance of your website because it's going to have to go through this entire for loop, which is 1,000 lines or even 2,000 lines of code, as you can see right here. It has to execute all of this before it continues on with the rest of the program. So later on, I'll be going over how you can make this asynchronous, which means this will be executed in the background, of course, so it won't block your website. But now I just added 1,000, and when I click on save, you'll notice that this actually went a bit slower than usual, and it ended a bit slower. So, I mean, sometimes that can be a huge issue, especially if you have bigger numbers, such as, let's say, 100,000, and you have something else you want to compute, because this is a very simple computation, of course. But let's go ahead and click on save. You'll notice that JavaScript is having a really hard time down here. Right now it froze at 1,079. Now it's at 5,872. And as you can see, this takes a huge amount of power for JavaScript to execute. And this will completely destroy your site if you don't handle this properly. So be careful on how you use for loops. Make sure they don't block your threads in such a way that you won't be able to use the website. Because right now we can't do anything while this is loading. If you click on the web page, right now it's completely frozen because I think JavaScript wants to take over. But there we go. So it finally finished loading all of the numbers. So now I can finally use my browser again. But since it was working so hard to compute all of these lines of code, it made it really hard on my computer to process it, and it made it very slow. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when you are working with for loops, that they can block your experience on the web page if not handled properly. But for very basic use cases such as this one, it should be fine. You can load some dummy data, you can do some very simple calculations, and it will be relatively fast. But that's actually all I wanted to go over in this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video.